So, I've been an anime fan my whole life, since I was a kid at the age of 4 watching Goku turn into a Super Saiyan and Naruto punching Neji in the Chunin exams. They've been core experiences for me as a person growing up. That being said, I've now been into anime longer than probably most people and before it was popular or widely accepted. Watching different series and seeing different stories unfold was something I've always loved, and even if I did, many others wouldn't. Today, I'll be talking about being a fan of a few series, despite it feeling like nobody actually likes them. Yeah, there are some people, of course, who like them, but internet discourse makes it feel not that way. Meh. To get started, Seven Deadly Sins. I got into the series when the anime first dropped, and I started reading the manga on a grade 7 trip, where I thought the scene with Gil Thunder and Meliodas was ridiculous and so over the top that I actually ended up not liking it, but I actually kept reading it because I couldn't get over the art or even the over-the-top nature out of my head. And for those who are unaware, Seven Deadly Sins is a story about a group of 7 knights who are framed for a crime, and they have to obviously escape and go on the run, and the story picks up several years later when the princess of the kingdom that they were obviously run out of now is looking for them to help her in reclaiming that kingdom from the corrupt Holy Knights. I should clarify that I was reading Fairy Tail at the time, and it was during one of the volume extras that there was a crossover between the two that I was first made aware of it. Anyways, I started to slowly enjoy more of it, and during the first tournament match between Bon and Meliodas, and once the Holy Knights invaded, I was actually pretty hooked. From there, I caught up to the manga and made it to when Gallant was wrecking the cast's shit and kept up from there. My personal opinion on it, without making it a video essay, I really enjoyed what it was. The romance was fun, the action was obviously the reason I stayed, but came around to, and how it did things, but I also liked the story and characters. The world building kept getting more interesting, and the plot reveals were actually shocking, and it could be surprisingly subversive when it needed to be. The anime, till the movie, was also experiencing lots of praise, but then shit hit the fan. While manga fans were enjoying themselves as the art had always been top-notch, the anime-onlys were a different story. From what's been reported, the movie, Prisoners of the Sky, didn't perform very well, so A1 Pictures dropped the series, but since it had a popular manga, an anime adaptation wasn't in question, but the studio was. There we land on Studio D, known for their adaptations of Fate Stay Night and Konosuba. My opinions aside, they aren't really known for their highest quality anime, and at the time, while people, myself included, were enjoying Konosuba, their record of action anime wasn't really the best. Casual fans may have been less the wiser to an actual studio change if the quality was more consistent, but yeah, Meliodas vs. Escanor was the straw that broke the camel's back. In the manga, we were so hyped over it and losing our minds as the chapters dropped. We even got a double chapter at one point, and after seeing Escanor vs. Estarossa and the movie, I thought this was going to be a generational fight once animated. But alas, that's where the title of this video actually comes into play. The animation quality was so off, and this isn't them being untalented, this is a matter of time crunch. Despite it being said that Dean animated it, it was actually another studio called Marvy Jack who animated it. From reports, they were inexperienced with handling such action-heavy shows, and with the constant deadlines needing to be hit, I can feel nothing but sympathy for our team. But that being said, at the time the internet and the fanbase were up in arms. This is also where the story started to get re-examined as being the 7 deadly ditties, and the world building began to get labeled as generic fantasy more often than not. People have always had issues, but now it feels like everyone parroted those issues, and what were once a few naysayers became the norm. The manga was also suffering from some pacing issues at this point, as well as we had just defeated the Demon King only to reveal that he had survived through Zeldris' body and is back yet again. I was shocked and happy, but could understand the complaints, and it didn't help that we then had a secret surprise villain at the end who was actually just setting up the sequel / main story of the universe. So yeah, Seven Deadly Sins went from being a series that sold slightly more than One Piece at its peak during the year to being described as a series made for brain-dead shonen fans who only enjoy some questionable writing. Hell, it's so bad that even Four Knights of the Apocalypse, the sequel series which I and many fans adore and still keep up with weekly as of this recording, is being ignored despite its high quality. I could talk at length about that series, but yeah, it's depressing to see the state of this story, and well, not the story of Four Knights, but the franchise, I guess, in general. Next, we move on to Boruto, a series that gets clowned on more than it ever gets analyzed. I was following Naruto up until its end, and while the 4th grade ninja war is a discussion in and of itself, TLDR I love it,
the ending mostly polarized lots of fans when it first dropped. Over a decade of stories and we get babies ever after was the most common complaint. I don't really know what people wanted, but yeah, fans were not exactly happy. Then came the announcement that we were getting a movie based on Boruto, Naruto's kid. Fans were even more skeptical and pissed, but it came out and it was actually liked. I loved it personally, and afterwards we were told that Boruto is not only getting a new manga, but a new anime, something to go beyond what the movie said, or told at least. If the quality of the movie was anything to go by, we were in good hands, right? Then the first chapter dropped. From the beginning, rather than a cliched reintroduction about who Boruto is and the world of Naruto, well, we kind of got that. We get a flash forward of Boruto fighting a mysterious guy named Kawaki. The cryptic lines and alluding to future events sent the fanbase in a complete frenzy. What happened to Naruto? To Konoha? Why is Boruto like this? Who the hell even is Kawaki? Not gonna lie, this is still one of my favorite ways to start a story. It was so goddamn amazing that me and my friends still quote it to this day. I mean, seriously, you just had to be there. Back when this was the only content, aside from the movie, that we got, we did not know what the hell we were in store for. So everyone was just really excited and happy and thinking, man, this is going to be a really great story. I can't wait to get to the time skip. It's going to be like Boruto's own Shippuden. Well, you know the title of this video. Public perception of Boruto began to take a dive shortly after its beginning. The story's pacing is first focused on looking at Boruto's daily life, which people would have been fine with if they saw him working towards something, but it's mostly just him living his life, attempting to distance himself from the image of his father and be his own person. One episode was Boruto and Sarada comparing their favorite foods, and yeah, even if it was meant to actually just build their relationship, this was coming off the back of one of the most legendary stories in not just manga/anime, but in entertainment in general. So yeah, I mean, expectations were being shot down 360 no scope. Shout out to that. It was then announced that we were getting some adaptations of some novels, the Sarada manga side story, and a movie. Again, they're really pulling a Dragon Ball Super, which split people. Some were fine with this, others wanted to actually just see the new stuff we were promised in the beginning, but a ray of hope finally began to show up when Kawaki was introduced in the manga and his backstory was really fire. Everyone began to think, this is it. But after being integrated into the cast, the anime had some more filler which rubbed people the wrong way. The manga was actually the opposite of the anime though, where it had a really sharp story, but it came out at a monthly pace in a weekly magazine. Take that as you will. It also didn't help that the animation quality was inconsistent, which again is not the fault of the animators, but rather the consequence of being a weekly long-running anime. Episodes range in quality and new animators are always brought on to gain more experience, and it can show. I'm not going to single out any episodes or frames of animation, as I have the utmost sympathy for being in that position that most people would actually hate, so be careful when you actually just go openly criticizing things. You probably should have a little more sympathy, because if you were in that situation, you'd probably want to go straight to therapy. Anyways, in the manga, things started to actually look up once we got to the fight with Jigen and the tearful farewell to Kurama. I also have to say that the lore with Boruto began to get more interesting with the introduction of Amado and Kara. I know people will often throw the "why are there aliens in the story about ninjas" when talking about Boruto, and the end of Naruto technically, but I actually find that the way they handle it to be pretty interesting and cool. Maybe I'm just a Naruto glazer since I watched the show since childhood, but I had no issues with it. So the story continues and we finally get a few big things happening. I won't spoil what happens, as I'd like more people to read it and realize it's actually pretty good, but IRL, the Boruto anime was announced, it was going to be taking a hiatus, and Studio Pierrot taking their animation quality even more seriously with the Thousand Year Blood War adaptation and Black Clover's return. I can only think that Boruto will be even better. In fact, we may get an actual glorious comeback once 2 Blue Vortex and the end of the original Boruto first part manga are adapted. The Boruto manga also ended, and when I say ended, I mean that it got a part 1 treatment and we got a sequel, which is the next part known as 2 Blue Vortex. with character writing that started to actually remind me of Naruto's glory days, as we're seeing these kids become older, more mature shinobi. The action and mystery started ramping up, and each chapter release is met with a lot more anticipation from its fans, but alas, the video's title comes into play. People don't give a flip if the pacing got better, because over a decade of poor perception and filler hell that played lots of older anime has ruined lots of people's perception of it. We're in a time where lots of new anime fans didn't have to grow up with these insane amount of filler, and if they did, a la Black Clover, it would mostly just be brushed under the rug and not get as much discussion or mainstream attention compared to things like JJK, Demon Slayer, or MHA. So yeah, it's in a little bit of a tricky situation. I mean, I don't personally mind when the anime quality is like complete tank. It doesn't look that amazing, because I've grown up watching adaptations where the quality can kind of shift a bit from episode to episode, and it didn't bother me too much as long as the story was entertaining. But yeah, I can see that a lot of newer anime fans absolutely cannot stand for that. So yeah, Boruto fans are fewer and far between, as people just write it off as a bad next generation story that has been around since the Star Trek days. And by been around since the Star Trek days, I mean, yeah, every time there's a new generation, people think, well, shit, this fucking sucks. You can see it in Power Rangers, you can see it in Shaman King Flowers. It's really kind of always been there. Again, like Four Knights of the Apocalypse, even stories like the aforementioned Shaman King Flowers / Superstars, next generation stories in animes are always getting the side-eye treatment. JJK Modulo has been received better, but it went more like the first few chapters are meh, middle is hype because we get fights, and ending is rushed. I actually have a lot of thoughts on Modulo, but TLDR, I like all of it. But this isn't really the place for that, so maybe I'll talk about it in another video. You know, I realize all these stories I'm actually pulling from are just sequels / next generation stories. So, well, anyways, at least the final entry of this video is going to be a little something different. I'm, of course, talking about Gundam Seed / Destiny. Now, I've gone into watching Gundam in 2024 and started with Seed. I've always known about the franchise and even listened to a few openings, with Invoke being my personal favorite for years, but the only mecha series I've actively seen were things like Gurren Lagann and Code Geass. But once I got to Seed, I actually really liked it. It did take a bit of time to get things going, but once they were reaching Earth and Kira stayed on the Archangel to fight Zaft slightly before that, I was a fan. Once they actually did get to Earth and they headed for the desert and then Orb, I was purely in love. The series really found its footing, and it's lots of fun. I can make a whole video on Seed, but yeah, Kira became one of my favorite protagonists of all time. I love Athrun Lecruce, along with Flaga, Sai, Mirialia, and all of Kira's friends and crew of the Archangel, along with the Zaft crew. But I'm going to save a special section for certain characters because I want to make my flimsy point first. The story had a great conflict between naturals and coordinators, and just TLDR, naturals are normal humans and coordinators are genetically enhanced humans, and that's just making it really simple. The mysteries were intriguing, the fights and action were balls to the wall fun, and the pacing got really great as it kept going. Anyways, I'd known for years about how there was a sequel to Seed and how people weren't exactly fans of it. My older brother and a friend of mine actually made me acutely aware of it. But when I first started watching Destiny, I was actually really liking it. The story starts off with the Gundams getting hijacked, and a recurring theme in the show actually, and a surprisingly refreshing POV from Zaft and not Earth's military, which is the complete opposite of how the original show started. I'd say that for the first arc of the show, till about like maybe episode 13 or 15, when the main cast is essentially getting run out of Orb and attacked by the Earth's military, and Shin saves everybody, I was a happy goose. The show's pacing was nice, and the characters were cool, and the action was still top notch. But that begins to change by the time that Kira and the Archangel get back into the story as another faction for us to follow. Let me slow down and explain a few things before we get kinda out of hand. We have a few major factions at work here. We have Blue Cosmos, a group of douchebags, the Earth Alliance, and Orb, all working to kick the shit out of Zaft and the coordinators. Athrun, one of the main characters of Seed, rejoined Zaft after initially leaving to stay with Kagali, the leader of Orb. I hope you're not too confused yet, as we now have prior protagonist Kira Yamato, and the crew of the Archangel rejoin the story as a faction that's in the middle, not on anyone's side, but getting in between battles of both and creating confusion as to what their goals actually are. It's actually explained in the story why Kira's crew do what they do, but I could get why viewers may find their actions contradictory, as they are essentially fighting in a war as a major threat to both sides and just peace out before anyone can get answers from them. So yeah, Destiny has a lot of stuff going on, and that's not even getting into the character stories, political intrigues, shifting balances, and allegiances. I for one was actually enjoying the sprawling narrative, as it helped feel like an actual world and a war, but allowed me to put on my Log Horizons glasses where I push it and begin to explain issues people had with it. And trust me, there's quite actually a few. First off, the Zaft crew. When we're introduced to them, they're actually a pretty rad set of characters. Shin, despite all the hate he gets online, is a sympathetic orphan who lost his family in a brutal way and a victim of war, despite living in a nation which has always promoted peace and never actually wanted to go to war. But that's not all actually completely true, because some of the plot revelations in Seed are revealed about the authors. Hell, I mean, once you watch Seed and then you go back to episode 1, you'll know exactly what I mean. But anyways, he starts the story off as an angry pilot arguing with the onboard Minerva Kagali, and right, the Minerva is the ship that we travel on throughout the series, which is where the Zaft crew are, and being mostly uncooperative, but Shin is a goddamn good fighter, so we can let that slide. Then we have Rei, who bears resemblance to Crusade, the villain of Seed. He's a level-headed and composed person, often reining in Shin and actually acting like a bit of a confidant and one of his only friends who doesn't just abandon Shin outright or kind of just say that you're a fucking idiot. I like their relationship, and despite the way that it actually unfolds later on, and there's a manga that actually goes into a bit more detail about it, so check that out, it's pretty easy to find. Then we have Luna Maria, the grounded pilot who helps balance Shin in a way that's less manipulation like Rei later on, and more of a stop being silly sort of way. I thought that when the show actually began, the trio of pilots would be this unstoppable power force that offered different strengths on the battlefield, Rei being the composed strategist, Luna being the grounded voice of reason, and Shin being the powerhouse that would actually follow Rei's strategies, but also follow Luna's wisdom, and not push himself into, complete darkness. But nah, bro. Not to say I hate them, but they've evolved a little differently. So for starters, Shin went from I'm angry but with reasons to destroy everything that gets in my way. He's constantly fighting with Athrun, ignoring his friends, letting Rei and the chairman just manipulate him and going completely with their emotion, and overall acting more with his emotions than anything else. Now, he's actually the opposite of Kira, whereas Kira gets his Jesus Christ allegory from the fan base. Shin is more like the Antichrist, constantly just fighting and leaving destruction in his wake. I don't want to spoil one of my favorite Shin moments, but let's just say that his anger blinded him so much that he accidentally did something that if he knew what he did, he'd hate himself forever about it. If you know, you know. Todaka is all I'm going to say. Then there's Rei. I was initially interested in the way that his character unfolded. He went from being a level-headed person to being just a cog in a very screwed up system. His true intentions were revealed as the series went on, and considering his backstory, it actually makes a lot of sense. Since he's a clone and doesn't have very long to live, he dedicates his time to being the chairman's best lapdog, constantly manipulating Shin, who is surprisingly, as I said, a really good pilot, into accepting and going along with what the slow takeover of the world that they're actually enforcing through the chairman's actions, and just forcing everyone in general into the Destiny plan. I'm guessing that a lot of people felt very disappointed more than anything regarding his development, and also hated his lack of performance as a pilot and reskin of a mobile suit, the Legend, being of the Providence, which was Crusade's mobile suit at the end of the original show. His ending, while seen as shocking, still didn't really do much for others and kind of just felt like, eh. And last but not least, Luna Maria. Now, I love Luna, seriously. She's cute, funny, grounded, and her crush on Athrun is actually really funny. It was the kind of only down-to-earth comedy that we got in a series that's so damn dark. But of course, she gets sidelined, which led to people getting upset. Now, this isn't a result of the writers hating her, actually the opposite. The head writer wanted to expand more on her, Mayrin, and Rei, but couldn't due to executive meddling. This results in her having shifting feelings from Athrun and Shin in a rather sudden way, which I think was always planned, but it just kind of came out of nowhere. What I mean is, while she didn't seem to see Shin in that way, at least when you first watched the show, I mean, I certainly didn't think she saw him in that way, she suddenly did once Athrun was out of the picture and she quote-unquote lost her sister. It's more of a trauma survivors falling in love rather than love blossoming out of purity, but considering the series we're in, I don't actually have issues with that. It makes total sense, but it's a little sudden. That's just kind of the thing. Aside from that, she doesn't really get too much screen time due to the aforementioned reasons and ends up being like kind of a little underbaked, which isn't what she deserves at all, and she cannot make a single shot to save her goddamn life. So, where does that leave us? Well, after Kira rejoins the cast like a Smash Bros. Character, he sort of becomes the main focus again, taking away all the actual focus from the new protag, Shin, and just painting Zapped as the bad guys once again, along with Blue Cosmos, and it becomes a good and evil story. Now, again, there isn't anything wrong with this or anything I actually hate about it, but it does kill a bit of the complexity to the situation, and it just becomes Kira is good, and if you don't agree, die. I know I said Blue Cosmos were just a bunch of douchebags, but they did add some nuance into the actual situation, but we didn't really explore much of them. There's also more than a few recap episodes which were due to production issues and a reuse of storylines from other Gundam shows and even Seed itself, which was also critiqued in Seed when it actually pulled back from those other Gundam shows, and the somewhat elongated focus on the storylines such as the orb recapture and the back and forth between the Archangel and Minerva, but there's probably still more issues that Seed detractors can actually list. But yeah, needless to say, I am a fan. So the story was lots of fun and the characters were enjoyable to watch, and after hearing the issues behind the scenes, I don't really have a doom and gloom narrative about it, but rather I accept the shortcomings and can still enjoy Seed as a great entry and a great anime. Now, for a short, but it's not actually short, but a special section on the Seedcast, if you've watched the shows, you may have noted I dodged some characters. That's because this is their section. If there's anything that Seed is good at, and I don't think anyone can honestly deny, it's making the female characters appealing. Now, excuse my degen nature, but I am simply a simple man. Yes, I really did just say that. I see Natarl, or however you want to pronounce it, Badrigal, Captain Ramius, Captain Gladys, Luna Maria, and I am the older ladies are just my kryptonite, and I always love mature ladies, so I can't help it. Every time I see them on screen, I just have to praise God for letting this anime exist, and oh my god, bro. Like, Mu is such a lucky-ass man. He actually bagged one of the baddest girls known to man, bro. And Captain Gladys, oh my god, when her and the chairman were legit banging each other, and they show it early on. I mean, I thought there was something more that meets the eye with it, but like when I was first watching the show, and then they actually showed it, and I jumped up and I was like, nah, because if I were him, bro, no way am I not letting that. And then there's, of course, poor Natal, and now I do know one of the crew members had a thing for her, but damn, they really couldn't have kept her alive. Like, bruh, at least just give them a romance. And I know there's like a GBA game that actually has an alternative ending where she can survive and you can also help that crewmate actually ask her out and confess his feelings, but alas, that's its own thing, and that's also non-canon. To get into it all, though, it would make this video way longer than it actually is, and Luna, as I've already said before, is cute. If you go on Twitter, the cosplays for Luna and the other girls are just chef's kiss. But there's also Lacus and Kigali. Now, I've saved them because I have a few things to say. At first, I wasn't a heavy Lacus stan, but after seeing Sea Freedom, oh man, her outfits. Now, oof, there you go. That's all you need to know. There's also Mir, who, while I actually like and find her story to be one of the best in Destiny, I wasn't too big on her personality, but I don't care, I'm fucking smashing, bro. if you actually saw the scene with her and Athrun in the bed, which I won't show on YouTube, but Seed Destiny is available on YouTube, so it's like around, I think, episode 18 or 20. So yeah, I think you can find it. Just go and do your due diligence. And Kigali, man, look, tomboys are dangerous for me, and well, even as I record this, this microphone can't do justice because I'm recording through my phone. It can't do justice to tell you how thirsty I feel, bro. Yeah, okay, we'll leave it at that. So, sorry for the longer explanation on Seed and Seed Destiny, but they actually just needed that much of a longer explanation, as I'm kind of expecting most of you haven't seen the show or heard about it like the two aforementioned other series. So I really needed to explain it a bit more. Anyways, its reception has been a bit restored over in recent years, and especially after Freedom, which was a terrific movie. I will not hear anything else. Now we just wait for Freedom Zero to come out. So, yeah, this is the end. There's more series I can talk about, but this video is gonna get really long, and editing it is going to be a pain. So let me know if there are some more series that you like and others don't. They don't have to necessarily be sequels. They can even be original series. I mean, I have plenty of original series that I actually really like that nobody gives a fucking hoot about. So I also have a video on games that I'm actually making, of being a fan that nobody is with games. So I'll have to wait though until this is released. So look forward to it, and I definitely have a lot of things to say on that part. And also thanks for the 10 subs. I don't really think it's gonna grow after this, but who knows, maybe I could be proven wrong. This is a little bit of a different video, but I'm open to experimenting with different types of videos. So yeah, see ya.